Hey guys, guess what I'm going to talk to you about? I've been studying AI recently, and I've specifically been looking at ChatGPT and Claude AI, and that's what we're going to talk about. Now, let me get out of the way here. So, this graph I got from Google Trends, which, by the way, the AI suggested that I go to Google Trends and get this graph. That says that since mid 2022, interest in the AI has been going like crazy fast. There's tons of videos out about it now. There's all this information. There's some controversy about like copyrights and whether or not it is being used ethically in the sense that is it taking jobs from people? Should it take jobs from people? Should it learn? Should it be able to tell you information from somebody's book who was making money selling that book? Like the question is, will people still read the book when the AI will tell you what was in the book because the AI read the book for you? These are all ethical questions, but it's all over the news. This is April of 2025, and we're just going to talk about it in some detail. A couple of observations about AI in general. AI is really fast. Like, it is shockingly fast, especially if you try to create images with it. The fact that it can just crank that out is amazing. Something that you would take you hours to create, if you ask an AI to create it, it will create it in seconds. Uh, Now, here's something else I've discovered. AI is really confident, and it's often more confident than it ought to be. I've had AIs tell me things that were just flat out wrong and contradict itself. Okay, like I asked the AI, what is the difference between the New York Stock Exchange and Nasdaq? And it says something about how the New York Stock Exchange is the oldest, and in the United States, it's the biggest in the United States, and that it is where it's the most prestigious in the United States, and all the big companies like GE and Ford and Apple are, the biggest companies in America are on it. And I said, okay, well, tell me about NASDAQ. And they said, well, it's all online, got started in 1971, and it's mostly tech companies like Microsoft and Apple. And I said, oh, so you're saying that Apple is in both the New York Stock Exchange and on NASDAQ? And it said, well, no, they can't be on both of the stock exchanges. And I was like, well, you just said, you just said that it was in the New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ. And they were like, oh, well, no, that's not right. It's only in NASDAQ. So it was just flat out wrong. And when I pointed it out, it corrected itself. But now, if you were talking to a person, that wouldn't even bother you, right? I mean, people do that all the time. And so I don't want to like say that it's useless. I want you to just know that when you ask the AI things, sometimes it's just wrong. In the same way that if you walked across to your neighbor's house and asked them a question and they told you with great confidence that something was the way it was, well, maybe that's true, but maybe it's not. And if you're asking a person that's supposed to know, let's say you're just asking a really smart person that you know that that person could be wrong. And I'm going to tell you that the AI is exactly the same way. So, another thing is the information in the AI tends to be like last year's information because that is what they train it on. Like they're working on new revisions all the time, so they're getting updated all the time, but they're not getting updated that fast. They're grabbing information, they're putting it through the machine, and the machine is trained on it, and then they put out another revision. So my experience is that the AI does not have the most up to date information. It will search the web. Like I will ask it a question, and then it will tell me something that I know is outdated information. And then I will say, "Here is a link. Look here and then tell me what you think." And it'll go, "Oh, I guess it's not, but it's the same as, again, it's very much like a person in the sense that a person that's somehow been, I don't know, asleep for the past, you know, 6 months to a year, okay? And that might be a really smart person, but they have checked out for a while, and you don't notice it until you start using it a lot. But if it's a very topical issue, then it is very likely that it will have old information. Um, okay, so if a conversation gets too long, it will get confused. All right. Yes, I have found this to be true. This is especially true with ChatGPT. It will, it will, and I haven't seen it as much with Claude because Claude just won't let you have a very long conversation. But if you go too long, basically it having to read back over all of that information to try to go to the next thing, because the computer doesn't really have anything like memory, like we would say of memory is. Um, that is one of the things that is very strange about it, is that it has no memory. Like every time you come to it with a new conversation, it doesn't remember anything from your last conversation. And that's really weird, being that a lot of times it feels like you're talking to a real person, but then suddenly it's so like a person that has this terrible memory and that doesn't remember what we just talked about a minute ago. And so, or the fact that we've talked about this particular topic like, 20 times, it just doesn't remember, because it's not doing that. It's just, it'll reread the thread that you're in. And like I said, it just tends to happen more in ChatGPT because it tends to have longer threads. But it starts to kind of like skip down, like it kind of skims the thread because it doesn't remember. It's not like a person in that way. Let's see. You can both, it says, oh, both can read text off of a picture. I found that out just today. If you take a picture with text on it, I had this program that was giving me an error message, and I tried to copy and paste the error message into the AI. Like the Control C, Control V just wouldn't work. That's what I mean. So I took a screenshot of the error message and I uploaded the picture, and I just said, "Can you see the words on this picture?" And it told me what the words were. So it has OCR, which I guess is what, ocular character recognition, built into them. And so if you upload a picture with an image on it, that's also a little lesson for you teachers out there. If you think you're going to keep a kid from copying, pasting things into AI by making it into a JPEG, that's not going to work. If they upload the JPEG with the picture on it, the AI will read it, no problem at all. All right, so ChatGPT. So I'm going to talk about ChatGPT and I'm going to talk about Claude, okay? I know that there's others. I know that there's quite a few others. I know that um, uh, Meta has one. I know that Google has one, and I got limited time. I went with the two that right now are the most famous. Okay, the most popular, and because I felt like, that was probably the baseline that I should be looking at. So ChatGPT Pros. It has a very conversational feel. They have gone out of their way to make you feel like you're talking to a real person, and it's cool. Um, it also has longer, like in my experience when I'm doing something with ChatGPT, I'm using a free account in both ChatGPT and Claude AI because I'm evaluating them. They're like $20 a month to do that, and I could convince myself to do that, but I don't think I could convince myself to do that in both of them, so I've been evaluating it. I feel like that the ChatGPT gives me longer access for free. It does. It seems to cut. It seems to take longer to cut me off. Um, I would say that ChatGPT is the better writer. Like if you ask it to write something for you, I feel like you get better prose from ChatGPT. Okay. Um, it has some ability to remember. I just a minute ago that I said that it doesn't have a memory. ChatGPT keeps a file on you. It's like a hot, like for example, it remembers that I'm a teacher. there's a file and you can go in and you can see everything that it's saved about you, and you can delete things because it will only save so many things about you. Let's say it'll save like 100 things. Oh, it will let ChatGPT will let you make copyright free images. And later in this presentation, I will show you a couple that I've made for this presentation in ChatGPT. ChatGPT cons. For some reason, ChatGPT, some days you'll get on it and it seems less intelligent than other days. Like it will it will it's hard to explain. It will just seem dumber than it was yesterday. But you just need to know that about ChatGPT. And it tends to be very verbose. It tends to over explain things. It's not like it's bad information I'm talking about. I'm talking about like you asked a simple question and it gave you a complicated answer. Or like too much detail or more detail than you would have liked, and you end up skimming the answer to try to figure out like the answer to your question. All right, Claude AI. Code generation is preferred by programmers. The main thing, the reason I picked up on Claude AI is because I kept hearing from people that like to code, and I like to code, um, that Claude AI was better for coding. Okay. And my experience with it is, well, they both will do code. First of all, that's what you need to know is that both programs will do code, but the programmers prefer Claude. I think it has to do with, in some ways, how it's less verbose. It's more to the point. I think that with my experience, I was trying to learn JavaScript, and I was trying to use the AI to help teach me JavaScript because I was trying to learn to use this AR program called Eighth Wall. And I started with Claude AI. That was my entrance to Claude AI, is that I'm going to learn JavaScript, and people say that Claude AI is good at coding, so I'm going to get it to help me learn how to code. And it was creating some code chunks for me, and I was reading the API, and I would have to paste in the link to the API page because it wouldn't go on its own. It would just like guess how it was going to work, which was very frustrating. Sometimes it would just make up functions. They would assume that the API had this function. And I would go, "Are you sure that exists?" And it goes, "Well, no, I'm not sure it exists. I guess it might not. You should probably check." And I'm like, "What are you here for?" So um, it is an interesting environment to work in. But again, but the thing about it is you need to know that it will seem just as confident when it is dead wrong as when it's right. So you need to kind of check behind the AI. Claude AI kind of pushes you to start a new conversation more frequently than ChatGPT. And I think that's the reason that it doesn't get confused as much. And when I say confused, like sometimes ChatGPT will like tell you something that you've already, like when I was working on that code that I was telling about, there was this code that it said, "Oh, you should do it like this." I did it like that. It didn't work. I looked it up. I said, "Okay, the API says that this list is the only things that it will take." And it goes, "Oh, okay." And then later, and then we talked about a couple more things. And then later, I asked it something, and it says, "Oh, well, this code, you should write it like this." And it went back to the thing that I had already established in the same thread was not going to work. And for some reason, it just forgot. Well, again, and Claude AI will also, like I said, it will sometimes give you wrong answers. So my general attitude towards the output of these devices is that they're giving you rough drafts, whether it's code or whether it's a paper or whatever. It is giving a rough draft. It can save you a lot of time. It's faster to fix a paper than it is to write one from a blank page, right? So, and I'm going to give you an example of that in a little bit. Okay, Claude AI's cons. The fact that it has no memory is kind of frustrating. So you have these short conversations. I was taking this code that I was working on. I was pasting the entire file into Claude AI. Then I would say, I'm writing this for eighth wall, which this is a TS file, and this is my problem. I'm getting an error. I'm getting a squiggly line under this word. Why is it doing that, right? And we would discuss that, and then it would kind of say you need to switch to another window, and so I would do that, and I would have to repaste the document back in there, tell it that it's eighth wall again, tell it that I'm new to JavaScript and I'm trying to learn, and then ask my question in the new one. So that was a little frustrating. It did work. It did help me. I would say that I learned a lot about JavaScript in about 2 weeks. I mean, this is not something that's going to happen instantly because I'm trying to learn it, right? But it was a wealth of knowledge, and it would write like rough chunks of code that I could then look up something and go, okay, what is it talking about? I could like Google search something that's in the document, or I could just ask it, like, what does this mean? And it would explain it to me. Token limits have to do with the fact that it cuts me off a lot faster than I would like. I feel like I'm just getting into the flow, and then it cuts me off. It says come back in 4 hours, and I'll give you more answers. All right, so let's see. Okay, so now I want to show you something. In doing this presentation, okay, these were my original notes. Okay, I did this just sitting down going, okay, I've been messing with AI. What do I want to say about it? And I just scratched out these notes like this, okay? And I went into ChatGPT and I did this. Okay, so up here, sorry about the jumpiness of it. All right, so I pasted that I just showed you into ChatGPT. And then I said, let's see, I need to make slide presentation where I talk about my exploration of AI for my class. It will be a video. Here are my notes. And then I put my notes in there. And then I said, and then it started to give me a suggestion for the slides for my presentation. And I didn't use it exactly the way it did, but it was saving me a lot of time for it because it did this. It did what you're looking at right here in seconds. We're talking about like 10 seconds. And then let's see. I said something like, sure, it says, let's see Google Slides in a second, but do you see anything you would like to add? And then it goes over here and it says additional suggestions. And then, and I talked about the fact that I wanted to mention eighth wall and my work with AI for that and stuff like that. So this is the kind of stuff that that's the kind of output you get from AI. That's what I did with ChatGPT earlier to do this presentation. For Claude, hang on. All right. This is something that I did, and it says, okay, so I started with explain this to me, right? And if you hit enter, it'll say something even, what I really meant to do was like explain this to me and then upload this document. This is the document, right? I uploaded some code that I'd found on the web. And then it started saying things like this: core purpose, key components, keywords with definitions. I mean, that is a really useful thing when you're trying to learn something, especially when you know very little about it, right? You can just ask a general question, like I went to somebody who knew how to program and started asking them questions, right? All right, let me come back to my presentation. Now, let's talk about image generation. Let me get out of the way again. This was my prompt. Okay? And I'm not sure. Hang on just a second. Okay. This was my prompt, and it says, let's get a visual of a robot helping a student. Because I wanted to make an original image for this presentation, right? Let's see. Let's have the robot sitting in front of a computer with glasses on and typing. The young person is standing behind the chair, pointing at the screen and saying something to the robot, and both are smiling. The idea is that the robot is helping the student get information and is more knowledgeable than the student, but the student needs to direct the robot. It should be apparent that they are a team. Maybe the robot and the student are wearing the same shirt that says knowledge matters for everyone. Okay. That is what I put into ChatGPT. Here's what it did. Bam. That's cool, right? And it did it like, and the thing is, it did it like in less than a minute. Like that picture was created in less than a minute. And I think that's a great picture. So this picture was created to be like the optimal relationship between a student and the AI, right? The robot's the AI, right? He's in front of the computer because like he's access to information that you could probably get off the computer yourself, but he's helping. He's helping you do it, right? And in this case, though, I wanted it to be very clear that the kid is directing the robot. The robot is they're like a team, and I think that picture does a good job of kind of pitching it that way. All right, so educational benefits of AI. Okay, AI can help you get up to speed on an unfamiliar topic. Like it can take you from zero, like you don't even know what good question to ask. One of the limitations of just Googling things is that, like, so let's say you need to learn how to do a differential equation. You can put, how do you do a differential equation into Google and it will give you an answer. But if you wanted to ask Google, let's think, what could I do to figure out how to find the area in my backyard? you know, like Google can't help you do that. Like you have to ask it a specific question, right? And but with an AI, it can actually like it can take you for not knowing you don't have to know the vocabulary. You can start asking like real world questions, like when I gave that description of what I wanted in that picture that you see on the screen. Um, I spoke just in regular real world terms, and it just worked with me, right? Another thing is it can take complicated questions. Like, have you ever had a question about something and you were trying to find a video that explained how to do it, but you weren't even sure, like you're looking at a video, it's 20 minutes long, and you're like, I'm not even sure if what I need is in this video. So I'm gonna have to crank through tons and tons of videos to see if anybody tells me how to do whatever. A lot. I would definitely in April of 2025, I would go to AI first, and I would say, I would ask my question there. You know, how do I get the back seats out of a 2004 Pontiac? You know, So anyway, you would just you're asking a very specific question. You're not sure how you're going to get the answer to it, and you might get something useful. And if the AI says, "Well, I don't really have the specifics on that," it says, "Well, how could I get that information?" And it will usually it could be very helpful in that kind of situation. All right, so drafting a paper or presentation. Now the key word here is draft. In my experience, the language that comes out of sometimes the language that comes out is useful, but I change a lot of it. Um, it is it is it is an answer, and but you can always kind of tell that the robot wrote it. My students like to turn in some of my students like to turn in stuff that they copied and pasted directly from AI, and I can always tell. I can always tell. Easiest way to bust them is to put your hand over a word that you're pretty sure they don't know, because there's lots of them. Because basically, I'm teaching middle schoolers, and the robot or the AI speaks in college level language. So you just put your hand over one of those words and you go, what's this mean? What does the word blah, blah, blah mean? And they squirm. And you're like, yeah, you didn't write this, did you? Yeah. So it is a rough draft, and you need to read it before you use it. And you need to be able to decide if it gave you good information or not. And if you are not 100% sure that it's right, you need a second source. Okay. It has done a lot of work for you because it ground that paper out. And it will make it take a lot less time for you to finish it. Because like I said, it's kind of like that. You got first draft, second draft. First draft's done, right? It might not have everything right. It might be some things that are just flat out wrong. But the first draft is done, so let's get started on the second draft. And that is very helpful, and especially with just speeding up your process. All right, now, this is for the second image. So if you have a free account on ChatGPT, you can only get 2 images out of it a day. So I was like, I got to spin my images wisely, right? So I said, okay, I need a second image. And I finally was like, okay, I just want a contrasting image to the other image because I was really happy with that first image. So this is what I said. How about an image of the same characters, but in this one, the boy is not participating and is wearing earphones and is on his phone with his elbow on the desk, his head on his hands, and his eyes half closed. And the robot is turning in the paper to a box on the teacher's desk with a worried look on his face, and it is looking back at the boy. And on the robot, it now says, I did everything. And on the boy's shirt, it says, checked out. Now, do you think that it was able to get this done? Check this out. That is awesome, right? I was just like that's exactly what I asked it to do. That is exactly what I asked it to do. So this is a picture of an unproductive relationship with AI, especially in education. And this is the frustratingly, well, here's the thing. There are a whole lot of lessons right now that were made in an old paradigm, okay? Where your person is going to do research to find the answer, right? You're giving them, I want you to figure out what this is. It's going to take them like 3 seconds because of AI. It's not a good assignment. Just asking them, I don't know, like look up some facts about, the French Revolution. And you have this like, who is this? They're going to put, who is this? Who was Napoleon's, I don't know, horse's name or whatever. And it is just going to tell them, and they're going to copy it, and they're going to paste it into the work. They're going to copy your question, paste it into AI, and then it's going to give them the answer, and they're going to copy the answer and paste it back into your work and turn it in. And I'm just not convinced that that's a very good use of anybody's time, right? You didn't actually learn anything about what they know. They probably didn't even read it. They just copied it and pasted it. So that kind of assignment doesn't work in a world where people have access to this kind of AI, okay? We're going to have to figure out new assignments, right? Like when you live in a world where information is at your fingertips, what do you need to know? Some things you still need to know. Some things you need to have in your head, or you can't even ask a good question, right? But it's not the same things in a world where you had to go to the library and check out a book and read the whole book to even figure out what was going on. We don't live in that world anymore. So as educators, we've got to figure out, what do you know in that world? What do you need to know in a world where, like I said, if you just wanted some facts, you can ask the computer, right? But really, you've got to, the thing you have to be able to do in that environment is you have to be able to discern if it's good information. That is the whole game in a world where you basically end up with one source. I asked the computer and the computer told me. Okay, now you don't you can actually ask AI to give you sources. Like I've asked it, I said, where do you get that from? Like it said this, that, and the other, and I said, where'd you get that from? And it will say, well, and it'll give you links to places where you can back that up. And that's really useful, but you need to know that sometimes it's just flat wrong and you need to check, right? All right, so here are the obstacles, and I've been talking about them. Risks of students bypassing learning, which is the scenario I described a minute ago. Not all knowledge should be outsourced. Again, it doesn't. If you the fact that you can ask the AI what 6 times 7 is, it doesn't. It's not very like you need to just know that yourself, right? For a lot of reasons. Like it's foundational to understanding a lot of things in math. I used to be a math teacher. I'm still certified in math, so I think in these terms before. But there are some things you just need to understand yourself, and and not everything is just a bunch of facts. Like some things have to do with like how do systems work. I guess that's one of the things that you need to know for yourself is how the system works. And there are a lot of systems that some of them have to do with chemistry, some of them have to do with politics, some of them have to do with school. But you know, you need to know some things yourself. And we need to figure out what those things are that you need to know yourself and teach that. Because just teaching facts in this world, I don't know, it would just really depend. It would you just need to ask yourself at least when this person actually needs this, will they just look it up? And that can be that is going to be important to curriculums as we go forward. All right, so final thoughts. AI is a tool, not a teacher. Um, with this AI, somebody out there is probably thinking, could we just replace teachers, put everybody, get everybody the AI and be done? Well, I have said back when I used to teach middle school math, when I got certified on middle school math, went to Khan Academy and I brushed up because I needed to know what like eighth graders are supposed to know. I was coming in from outside of education, learning education, and so I got on Khan Academy and I went through all of the the tests for each of the questions, and there was a couple things I had to remember. Like I don't think I had used, you know, adding fractions in like 30 years. So I was like, okay, how you do that again? You know, and so you figure this out again, and then you pass the test. And I was able to get a very good grade on the test. I mean, I was in eighth grade at one time, so it's not like I'd never learned this. But again, we're talking about like something. There's some of this stuff like it just hasn't come up in a very long time, and that means that a child could learn everything you need to know for the eighth grade by just going through Khan Academy. But it's a rare child who will sit there and crank through all those videos and answer all those exercise questions and take all those tests and go, oh, now I know everything you're supposed to know in eighth grade. I've never met that child. Like children need a human to be accountable to. That's usually the parent. It's strongest and most effective when it's the parent. Um, but the teacher is a secondary person that agrees with the parent, right? With that you need to learn this. That's the thing that they agree on. You need to learn this. And so and so that relationship is what's making the kid learn it. Because the kid doesn't really want to learn it. The kid wants to go ride his dirt bike or, you know, do their hair or talk to their friend on the phone or whatever, right? The kid is having to put off doing something that they would actually like to do so that they can learn something. I mean, that's just life. And the teacher is there to try to create the incentive structure that will overcome the desire for the kid to just do not learn it, right? So that is the AI is not a teacher. It's also not a replacement for learning. In other words, you still need to learn things. And when used wisely, I think it can enhance education. It has helped me bootstrap myself into a basic understanding of JavaScript in like 2 weeks, with it basically being my tutor. Every time I had a question, I could just go ask the computer. And then let's see, we as educators and students must adapt thoughtfully. In other words, going back to that, what can I use the AI for? How do I use it to accelerate my learning and not just avoid my learning? All right. And this is the quote that I always tell my own kids and the kids at school. I want you to learn to use AI, but I don't want you to use AI to avoid learning. Thank you for your time. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.